Hello and welcome to this tutorial, and in this tutorial we are going to talk something about the action bar. So action bar is nothing but this thing right here which appears at the top, and if you have a look at this right now, as you could see, it is a simple and plain action bar and it is not showing any button over here. But if we run this application, you could notice that there is a button right here. So whenever we click that button, it is going to pop up a small item here which says settings. So in this tutorial we are going to learn how to customize this action bar according to our needs. So the first thing which I would like to mention here is that if you want to change the color of the action bar, so what you could do is that you could simply switch to the activity main.xml, and in there you could edit the color of the action bar. So you simply have to select this action bar right here, go to properties, go to a property called background, and change the color to any desired color which you want to. Then simply click OK, and the color of the action bar should be changed. Now the next thing which we are going to learn is that you could actually customize this action bar, and you could add in a few buttons so that whenever you click a button, some action happens or some action occurs. So in order to customize it, the first thing which we need to do is that we need to add a compile dependency to our application. So in order to add a compile dependency, we go to File, then we go to Project Structure, and in Project Structure we select an option under Modules which is called as App. And as you could see, there are multiple tabs over here, so we are going to select the dependencies tab, and this tab is actually going to contain all the dependencies which we have. And the dependency which we should have added here is going to be this dependency right here which says com.android.support appcompat v7:23.1.1. So if you don't have a dependency over here, so what you could do is that you could simply add in a dependency. So in order to add a dependency, we simply click this button right here, and in there we are going to add a library dependency. So we simply select this, and if you don't have a dependency here, you simply type in the name of this dependency, and when you hit OK, this dependency should pop up. So you simply have to select it and hit OK, and the dependency should be added up for you. So basically these M symbols stands for library dependencies. So if we have a look here, as you could see, we could identify dependencies depending upon their symbols. So once it is done, we are good to go. So once you have added the dependency, we simply click OK. And now the next thing which we wish to do is that we need to add a small button over here which performs some action. So in order to add a button here, what we do is that we switch to this menu folder which is right over here, right below the layout folder, and then we select this file which is called as menu main.xml. So we simply select it, and as you could see, this is our file right here, and inside it, as you could see, we have one item which is nothing but the button for settings. Now the next thing which we do is that we go ahead and add one more item to it. So basically, in order to add up any button or anything to the action bar, what we need to do is that we need to add it as an item. So let's go ahead and add an item to it. So we go right here, then we type the item tag. So we type item, and let's go ahead and give it an ID. So we type ID, Android ID equals @+ID, and let's name it as order _action. So once we have the ID, the next thing which we do is that we give it a title. So again we go back, so we go here, then we type in Android title equals, and here we are going to add in a string. So we type add string / and let's name this string as order action as well. And now the next thing which we do is that we also need to mention the particular order in which this should appear. So we type order in category. So we type Android order in category, and as we want to display it as the first item, we specify the number 1 here. And now the final thing which we need to do is that we need to actually mention when this item should be displayed. So we go here and then we type app : show as action, and what this thing does is that it is going to have some conditions like this item is going to be showed if there is a room for this item to be displayed on the action bar. So inside it we type if room. So once it is done, we are good to go. Now the only thing which remains is that we actually need to assign the value to this string right here. So in order to actually assign a value to this string, we again go to the values folder, we go to the strings.xml file, and we create a new string which is called as order action. So we simply copy this text right here, go back to strings, add a new string. So we type string name equals order action, and let's name it as order action. So now as you could notice, the error has gone. Now the only thing which we need to do is that we need to close this tag. So once we are done with this, we are good to go. So basically what we did is that we actually wanted to design this action bar right here. So we have basically changed the color of this. So in order to change the color, we go to the activity main.xml, we select this action bar right here, go to properties, go to background, change the color. Now in order to add an item, we actually cannot add an item to this over here. So this thing right here is nothing but the menu. So this is located under the menu folder. So if we go to the menu folder, we have a file which is called as menu_main. So we select this file and we are going to add a button over there in the form of an item. So in order to add an item, we use the item tag. Then we have specified the ID of this item, and that is because we are going to need it soon. Now after adding an ID to it, we have assigned the title to it. Then we have assigned the order in which this item should appear. So for example, if there are multiple items over here, so this item should be appeared as the first item. And then finally we have mentioned show as action. That means this is going to be showed as an action if there is a room on the action bar. So that's basically it for this tutorial, and in the next tutorial what we are going to do is that we are going to assign a nice little image to the button which we have created, and we are also going to learn how to handle the click events associated with any item on the action bar. So in the previous tutorial we have created this action bar, we have assigned a color value to it, and we have also added in an item over here inside the menu folder. So if we go to the menu folder and if we go to the menu_main.xml file, this thing right here is nothing but the item which we have added. Now you could add as many items as you want according to the need of your application, but for the sake of simplicity we have added a single item over here, and also make sure that you have different numbers over here. So this is basically the number which specifies in which order the item appears on the action bar. Now if we switch back to this activity screen right here, as you could see, nothing appears on the action bar, but if we save the code and if we run this on the emulator, you will see a small let's say button over here. But the thing is that we have not yet added an image to this button. So in this tutorial we are going to do the same. So in order to assign an image to this button right here, you could design an image in Photoshop, but the thing is that a more efficient way of doing this would be you simply go to this website which is called as developer.android.com/design/downloads/index.html, and these are nothing but the resources provided by Android for us to design our applications. So as you could see, there are the color palettes for the material design, there are layout templates, there are stickers, sheets, icons, there are Android Wear materials, and there are also the basic fonts which we need in our application. But for the sake of this tutorial, we are going to go with this which is called as the material icon collection. So if we select it, as you could see, we are presented with the icons, and these are the basic icons which we have here. So there is an icon available for each and every action which is imaginable. So we have the icons for accessibility, account balance, account box, account circle, book, and everything like that. So you could choose an appropriate icon from here, and actually it is available for free download, so you don't have to pay anything. So what we are going to do is that we are going to select one icon from here. So let's go ahead. And select this icon right here. So we simply select it, and we are going to save it in the PNG format. So we simply select it, and we are going to save the file. And when we actually extract this into a folder, this is the folder which we are going to get. So when we simply open it up, as you could see, we have three options here: Android, iOS and web. So basically we can also use these icons for developing iPhone applications, and also they have provided the icons for using on our website. So now the next thing which we do is that we switch to Android, and as you could see, there are multiple folders like HDPI, MDPI, XHDPI, XXX HDPI and XXX HDPI. Now what these things stands for is that it is basically the pixel density. So the icons are sorted according to pixel density. So if you open this up, as you could see, this icon is a bit smaller, and if we open this up, as you could see, this icon is a bit bigger. So the reason why we have these multiple folders is that whenever we upload our Android application to the Google Play Store, what happens is that each device has a different screen size and a screen resolution. So what happens is that if we have a single icon, and this icon might actually be too small for a phone with a larger screen, so instead of using this icon, our application automatically uses this icon right here, which is suitable for big screens. So that's the main significance of using these icons. And what we need to actually do is that we need to copy each and every icon, or we could also copy the entire folder, switch back to Android Studio, and as you could see, there is a folder which is called as the minmap folder. So we could simply go to the minmap folder, and we could paste the folder right over here. And what this thing does is that it is going to take the suitable icon and it is going to apply it over here. But for the sake of this tutorial, what we are going to do is that we are going to take the simple icon and we are going to rename it to something like a simple icon. So we type icon, and we are going to simply copy this, and we are going to go back to Android Studio and we are going to paste it in the drawable folder. So let's name it as icon.png, click OK, and if we click over here, as you could see, the icon has been added. So once this thing is done, we are good to go. So now the next thing which we need to do is that we simply need to go over the menu, main.xml file, which is nothing but here, and for this item we need to add in an image. So in order to add an image over here, we go right in between, we go right here, and then we type Android icon, and then we specify the path where the icon is located. So it is present in the drawable folder. So we type add drawable / and the name of the icon is icon. So we simply type in icon, and as you could see, the icon appeared right over here. So if we switch back to the content main.xml, as you could see, there is still no change on the screen, and that is because the change wouldn't be visible unless and until we run our application on the emulator. So we go ahead and save the code, and we are going to run this application on the emulator so as to check if it performs correctly. So when I tried to run our application on the emulator, nothing happened, and it was actually displaying this thing as empty, but now it is displaying OK. And I will tell you what changes I have made to this application. So basically this is our action bar right here, and if we click it and if we click this button right here, as you could see, nothing happens, and that is because we have not yet added the code for the action event occurred with this button right here. But if we click this button right here, as you could see, the pop-up of setting appears right over here. So in the next tutorial, we'll discuss what happened and where we have actually gone wrong while creating this action bar, and we'll also handle the event which is associated with this button. So that's it for this tutorial, and I hope you guys understood how to actually add in a proper icon to this action bar right here so that the user could be redirected to a new activity on clicking this icon. And in this tutorial we are going to finally make the action bar perform some action. So in the previous tutorial, as I said, we faced some difficulty when we tried to run our application on the emulator. The action bar actually appeared to be blank. So I figured out what the problem was. So basically what I did was that I was using the same project from the previous tutorial, which was the My Toast application. So this was the project which we have created, and I was using this as a sample. So in that project what I did was that as I removed the unnecessary code, so I have actually removed the toolbar from here, and I've also removed the create options menu, which was basically used to inflate the action bar, and also I've removed these options right here. But as long as you are using, or as long as you are creating a new project, you should not face any problem. So basically the only thing which you need to take care of is that you don't delete any code from this main activity.java. So as long as you didn't delete any code from the main activity.java, you will be fine and your action bar will be performing correctly. So that was the mistake which I did. So I went back to the project, I've added the toolbar, I've added the code which I had deleted, and once the code was added, the action bar was performing correctly. So make sure that you have this code right here. So this is basically nothing but on create. So this line here was deleted by me, which was nothing but creation of the toolbar and set support action bar method. And after it we had the on create options menu, and also on selecting the option, what happens, so this thing is mentioned in this method right here, and this is nothing but this is the code from the previous project. So even if I delete it, it does not matter. So once everything is set up, our action bar should perform correctly. Now the only thing which remains is that when we try to run our application and when we clicked the button on the action bar, as you noticed, nothing happened. And now in this tutorial we are going to learn how to exactly make it functional. So now let's go ahead and let's add one more activity to our project, so that whenever the user clicks this button right here, he will be redirected to a new activity. So in order to create a new activity, go to app, go to Java, go to this folder right here, which is the first folder, right click on it and select a new activity, and we are going to go with a blank activity. Let's name this as order activity, or let's simply name it as order, then click finish. And as you could see, now we have a new activity created, which is nothing but the order activity. So this is the XML file for it. So this is what the activity looks like, and this thing right here is nothing but the Java class for our activity. Now in order to distinguish this activity, we are going to go in the XML and we are going to add in a few things over here. So let's drag and drop a plain text here. So let's go ahead and drag a large text over here, and let's go to properties, let's go to text, and let's change this thing to, let's say, this is the order activity. And this thing basically here is going to be the activity which we want to start on clicking that icon button on the action bar on our main activity. So now once we have set up this activity, now the only thing which remains is that we actually need to switch to this activity when we click that little button over there. So you could add as many things as you want to this activity, but for the sake of simplicity, I've added just a plain text or a large text over here. So now once it is done, what we do is that we switch to the main activity which is present over here. And if we have a look at here, which is called as the on options item selected method, so what this method basically does is that it is going to check which item is being selected, and depending upon the ID of the item, it is going to execute some code. So this thing right here is for the settings button. So if the settings button is clicked, this action happens. So now what we want to do is that we want to add in a new action for the button which we have added up over here. So if we go to the menu folder and menu main.xml, as you could see the ID of our button is nothing but the order action. So we simply copy this ID, return back to the main activity, and we go right here and we type if ID is equal to r dot id dot order action. So what this thing does is that it basically tells that now the button which is associated with order action is being clicked. So on clicking this button, we want to make the application to perform some action, and that action is nothing but it is actually going to start a new activity. So we go right here and we comment it, the action which happens on clicking the icon on action bar. So whatever code we want to perform on the click of the button on the action bar, this code should be written right over here. So in this case, what we do is that as we want to start a new activity, we go ahead and create an intent over here. So in order to create an intent, we type intent and make sure that you import the intent. Then we type this equals new intent, and to this the first thing which we pass is going to be this, and then we pass in the name of the new activity which we have created, and that is nothing but the order.java. So we type order.class as this is a class. So basically we have created the intent, and as we want to start a new activity which is called as order, we have specified the order.class in the intent. Now the only thing which remains is that we actually want to start an activity. So we simply type start activity and finally pass in the intent which we have created. So once it is done, we are good to go, and we could also actually pass in the data from one activity to other activity by passing in a simple message into this intent. But for the sake of this tutorial, we'll be using a simple intent. So what this thing does is that whenever we click the button, it is going to start a new intent which is eventually going to be used in order to start a new activity. And also, if you wish to add new items to this, what you could do is that you could copy this, paste it over here, just change the order, change the ID, and if you want to perform some action, return back to the main activity.java, go to the on options item selected and create a new condition right over here and just paste your code here. And actually this thing should be else if. So sorry for that, I actually thought that there was nothing over here. So this first option was for the settings item, and this thing is for the item which we have added. So make sure that you have an else if over here, not an if. So once everything is done, we are good to go. So now the only thing which we need to do is that we need to save the code and we need to run this application on the emulator so as to check if this performs correctly. So now I've started the application on the emulator, and this is the main activity screen right here. So as you could see, this is the layout and this is the icon button which we have created. So if we simply click this button, as you could see, now the new activity has been started. And you might have noticed the change in the action bar. So the previous action bar was red and this thing right here is blue. So that is because simply we have not changed the property of color. But the thing is that our action bar actually works. So if we click here, we are going to get redirected to a new activity. So basically we are successful in creating this action bar, and we have successfully added up an item over here. So this thing works perfectly. Now the next thing which we do is that we go through the code once again and we learn or we revise what we have done. So the very first thing which we need to do is that I would recommend you to start a new project instead of just adding an action bar to your current project. And that is because I have messed up in the main activity.java. So basically I have actually deleted the action bar and I didn't know it. So make sure that you don't delete the action bar and you have the proper code over here. Now once you have it, The next thing which we do is that we add a dependency, and the reason for adding a dependency is that if you don't add a dependency, your application might not perform correctly. So in order to add a dependency, we go to File, then we go to the project structure, and in there under the modules we have the app folder. Then we have an option which is called as dependencies, and this is the dependency which we have added. Now it was added in my Android Studio previously, so if it is not added in yours, so what you simply need to do is that you hit this plus sign right here, select a library dependency, and it is going to pop up a small window, and in there you simply need to copy this, paste it over here, then click OK, and simply select the dependency which you want to add, simply click OK and exit out of it, and this is basically going to add a dependency over here. So once you have added a dependency, we were good to go. Then the next thing which we did is that we switched to a folder which was called as menu, and inside the menu folder we actually had these items over here. So this item, which was the settings item, was previously present and we didn't make any changes here, but in order to add a new item, which we have added an item tag, we have specified an ID to it, and make sure that you have a proper ID, and if you don't specify an ID over here, your application is not going to work perfectly, because we are going to use this ID in the main activity. So once we had the ID, we have set a title to a proper string, then we have mentioned the order, which is nothing but the order in which this thing should appear on the action bar. Then finally we have added an icon, and that is because we need to actually be able to see the item on the action bar. So we have copied an action bar image, so we have copied an image from the Android's website and we have pasted it in the drawable folder. Then we got a reference to this image, added it up here. So this is the image which appears here. Now finally we have mentioned this parameter, which is nothing but show as action. So this if room, what it does is that it is going to show the action bar if there is a room. Now this comes in handy when you have multiple options and you need to prioritize so as to decide which option should be actually present. So if room means that item is given a low priority, so if only room is available on the action bar, it is going to actually display it. Now after doing all these, what we did is that we have created a new activity which is called as the order.java. So this is the order.java class, and if we go to the layout, this thing right here is nothing but the order activity which we have created. So what we wanted to do is that whenever we clicked the button on the action bar, we should be redirected to this activity right here. So in order to make it happen, we switch back to the main activity, and there is a method which is called as the on options item selected. So what this method does is that it is going to check which item is actually being clicked or which item is actually being selected. So depending upon the selection, it is going to perform some action. So in order to identify each item uniquely, we have passed in the ID of the item. So basically the ID of the created item was order action. So we have checked the condition like if the ID is equal to the order action. So in that case we want to execute this code, and this code right here is nothing but it is an intent to start a new activity. So as we wanted to start a new activity, we have mentioned an intent here. Then finally we have started the activity, which is nothing but this order activity right here. So as soon as we press that button on the action bar, we are going to switch to this activity, which is nothing but the order activity right here. So that's it for this tutorial, and I hope you guys understood how the action bar actually works. So what the action bar is used for, so the action bar is basically used in whenever you want to switch to a new activity by using some item on the toolbar. So you might have noticed that there are multiple items on the toolbar on various applications, and they could be actually used to perform many functions. So in this tutorial we have used the item on the action bar so as to switch from one activity to other activity, but you could actually perform any desired function which you wish to, and you could also add in multiple items on the action bar. And also, if you wish to pass in a message from one activity to another activity, what you simply need to do here is that you need to pass in a message which is the extra message with this intent right here, so that the data gets passed from the main activity to the order activity. In this tutorial we are going to talk about how we could add multiple items to the action bar. So in the previous tutorial we have added one item to the action bar right here, and what that item did is that whenever we clicked on or whenever we selected that particular item, this activity, which was the order.java activity, was started. So in this tutorial what we are going to do is that we are going to add in one more activity, and we are basically going to add in one more item to this menu. And whenever the second item is selected, what we want to do is that we actually want to start the new activity which we have created. So the very first thing which we do is that we create a brand new activity. So in order to create a new activity, we go to the Java folder, then we go to this folder right here which has the Java classes for our activities. We simply right click on it, go to new, go to activity and select a blank activity. And let's name this activity as home delivery. Then finally click finish. And as you could see, the new activity is going to load up for us. So as you could see, this is the new activities XML file, and right here is the Java class for our new activity. So now the only thing which we need to do is that we need to add in some content to this activity so as to identify this activity as a separate activity from the previous one. So let's go ahead and drag a large text onto this activity. So let's drag a large text right in the middle, and let's change the text of this to, let's say, home delivery. So we go to properties and search for a property called text. So this is the property of text. So let's change this to home delivery. So we are not going to add much content to it, and that is because we just need to understand the significance of adding the second item onto the action bar. So once this activity is ready, the next task would be to add a new item to the action bar. So in order to do that, we switch to this menu, and as you could see, we actually need to add an item just as we have added over here. So the very first thing which we do before even adding the item is that we get an icon for our item. So in the previous tutorial, as I have earlier mentioned, that you could go to this website which is by Google. So design.google.com/icons/index.html, and there are a lot of icons to choose from according to your need. So in this case, as this is going to be a home delivery, we are going to select this icon right here. So when we click it, it is going to give us a bunch of options. So the option which we are looking for is the PNG. So we simply select it, and we are going to save the file. And when we open this up, we are going to have a folder. So let's go ahead and extract this folder to some location. So let's say we extract it to this new folder. So simply click OK, and your files would be extracted over there. So once you minimize this and go to the new folder, so as you could see, this thing right here is our icon. So if we open it up, as you could see, we have our icon over here. Now the only thing which we need to do is that we copy this single thing to the drawable folder. And also I would like to mention that this is not the correct way of doing it. Actually, we need to copy the entire folders which are present in this folder, and we actually need to use separate images for each of the screen resolution. But for the sake of simplicity, we are just going to copy a single icon, return back to the Android Studio, go to the drawable folder and simply paste it over here. And let's name this as order icon.png. and make sure that you have the extension as PNG, or else you are going to have a problem. And also don't try to include a numerical value in your name of image. So once it is done, we simply hit OK, and as you could see, the image has been added. Now the next thing would be to simply add an item to the action bar. So we go to this menu_main.xml file, then we simply use the items tag. So we type item. Firstly, we assign an ID to it, so we type Android ID equals @ID, and let's name this as home delivery, and let's give it a title as let's say add string, and let's name it as delivery. And the next thing, and the most important thing in this case, is going to be the order in category. And let's say we want to place it to the second position. So in this case, what we do is that we type order in category, and in here we are going to specify the number 2, and after it we specify the icon. So we type Android icon equals @drawable / and the name of our icon is order icon. So as you could see, the small icon just appeared right over here. So once we have the icon, the next thing which we do is that we add this final statement, which is nothing but show as action. So we type app show as action, and to this we are going to pass in the parameter as if room. So once it is done, we simply close the tag, and the only thing which remains is that we actually need to create a string resource in the strings.xml file. So we simply copy this, go to strings.xml, which is present in the values folder, and simply create a new string. So we type string name equals delivery, and also let's name it as delivery. So once it is done, we are good to go. So now the only thing which remains is that we actually need to start the second activity on clicking the icon or the second icon. So in order to make changes, we switch back to the main activity, and as you could see, this is nothing but the method which is called as onOptions item selected, and we have added the case for the second, for one of the buttons or one of the items on the action bar. Now we actually need to add in one more case for the second button. So we go right here and we type else if id equals r.id dot, and the name of our, or the ID of our new item is nothing but home delivery. So we type home delivery right over here. So what this thing is going to do is that it is going to capture the action which is related to the second icon. And what we do is that whenever the second icon or whenever the second item is clicked, we actually want to start a new activity which we have just created, and that activity is nothing but the home delivery activity. So in order to do that, we create a new intent. So we type intent equals new intent. So this is nothing new, we are just copying the line from the above line and making a little bit of changes. So here we are going to have the name of the new activity, which is nothing but home delivery. So we type home delivery dot class. So once we have the intent, the next thing which we need to do is that we need to start the activity. So we type start activity and just pass in the intent inside it. So once it is done, we are good to go. Now we could save the code and we could run our application on the emulator so as to check if this performs correctly. So as you could see, the application is up and running on the emulator, and this is our first icon right here and this is our second icon right here, and they actually appeared in the exact order as we have specified. Now the only thing which we need to do is that we need to test if on clicking the second icon the application switches to the new activity, which is the order activity. or sorry, the home delivery activity. So when we select this option right here, as you could see, it has redirected us to a new activity called home delivery. So if we switch back and if we click the first icon which we have created, it is going to redirect us to the order activity. So as you could see, we have added multiple items to the action bar, and we could actually go ahead and add in as many number of items as we want, unless and until they actually fit over here. So that's it for this tutorial, and I hope you guys understood how to add multiple items to the action bar and how to perform an action by selecting one of these items, so that whenever we select these items, we could actually switch to a new activity by starting a new intent. And also by using intents, what you could do is that you could take the data which is present on this activity. So whenever we click this button right here, your data gets transferred to this activity right here. So that's it for this tutorial, and I hope you guys understood how to add multiple items to a single activity. So thank you very much for watching this tutorial, and I'll see you guys in the next tutorial. Thank you.